Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Do you have an app idea that you've been dreaming about but don't know how to actually start building it? Use Bubble. I've been using Bubble for a number of years now. It's an extremely powerful no-code platform that enables you to build, launch, and scale real products without investing thousands of dollars on engineers, designers, or spending time trying to code it yourself. Use Bubble's visual drag and drop tool to create really anything from marketplaces, SaaS products, and so much more. Join over 2 million people, including myself, already using Bubble to launch and grow businesses. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Solur. He's the CEO of Kenmore. Cherie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. Obviously, I think everybody on the planet has basically heard of Kenmore, but you've done an incredible amount of things. You've worked for some of the biggest brands on the planet. But maybe before we get into all that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Kevin, I grew up in India, and I'm going to break this down into like two parts.
Sure.
Part A, in the south of India, I've been through my elementary, middle, and high school. But a part which is really interesting is when I went to engineering college, it was in the north of India, the northern tip, and it suddenly turned out to be a conflict zone. The year is 1989, the wall had fallen, the place is Kashmir, and I got a lot of life lessons there, basically studying in a conflict zone.
Okay, I'm curious, what did you learn, or what were those life lessons out of curiosity?
It's simple, right? When I was growing up in the South, we didn't have much growing up. Family values and leaning in on community was a really, really big thing. So giving back to the community and leaning in on community. So just to give you an example, I would come back from school, that there is no one at home. You probably could go to like any of your neighbor's house, get a bite to eat. You would go out and play in the local playground. And in the evening, you would have other kids and other people who would actually come in and have a meal in your place. So it's literally like you grow up in a community. So giving all the time was a part of it, and learning the ethos of never take more than you can give was something that was imbued into us, because that's how communities work. So that was in the initial phase of my life. And then when I went to study in a place that was absolutely foreign to me, 72 hours by train, and then 24 hours by bus. That's where I went to my engineering college, and it suddenly turned into a conflict zone. It gave me a great perspective about life, just being thankful that you're alive. And that's the second piece. So never take more than you can give, being a part of the community. And the second part is just being thankful that you're alive, and making sure that just being alive is a gift was a very important piece of lesson.
No, I think that's actually really good advice. So you mentioned university. What did you take and why?
I studied what is called electronics and communication.
Okay.
This was like a precursor to comp sci. But we did learn a lot of computer science subjects. And I just want to add one other thing. The conflict zone became unbearable to live, and then we had to go fight with the government to get the students who were in that engineering school to get placement in other parts of the country. So
Wow.
there you go. I mean, there was leadership. They were writing articles in the newspaper, talking to politicians and effectuating a change so that we did not lose a lot of time as we got moved to different parts of the country. So ultimately, it's about electronics and computer engineering was what I studied.
Interesting. What got you passionate about that at an early age?
The simple. Our mother is an engineer. She built panels that were basically attached to satellites. So think of
Oh,
this,
wow.
right? A traditional Indian woman in a sari who studied like electronics and we put together like vacuum tube based radios at home and she basically worked in a place where they built semiconductor chips and also solar panels and those panels eventually were on satellites that India launched. So being a product builder is something that my mom taught me and imbued in me.
Sure, that's cool. That would be awesome just growing up around that just kind of environment and that kind of inspiration, right?
Yeah, and then one other thing, uh, she would encourage me to like go play with other kids, and I used to play like community volleyball, and very quickly I realized that winning is a team sport. So this
Yeah.
combination of leaning in on the community, giving back to the community, because the community helps you, right? When you're hungry, I could literally walk into like anyone's home around and I would get fed. It's a phenomenal symbiotic relationship that was built. When you don't have much, community plays a huge role. And then going to a conflict zone gave me a perspective in life about surviving, getting people out of the conflict zone into different colleges taught me aspects of leadership. Winning is a team sport. Community volleyball taught me, and building products, my mom taught me. So there's a lot of life lessons that I learned outside of structured education, which I'm very grateful for, Kevin.
Interesting. Okay. So, do you maybe want to work in some of those life lessons while you give us maybe your career maybe highlights, because you've done a ton of stuff, and the reality is probably everybody listening is actually probably touched something you've worked on or has something that you worked on in your house today.
Yeah, so building products is a core part of my skill. And when you want to build a product, you have to have extraordinary empathy for the consumer or the customer who uses your product. You
Sure.
always have to put yourself in the consumer's shoes, and that really helped me quite a bit. So look, I felt passionate about brands very early on, and that passion basically showed up much later in my life when I created products for brands like Hugo Boss, Juicy Couture, Ferrari, Coach, Movado, and I'll touch upon that. But it's about building products that I initially learned. If I just give you uh, a snapshot of my career, I started right out of school as a research engineer. I was pretty good technically. I could literally build products based both on analog and digital electronics. So I went into Sanyo Labs. Sanyo is a Japanese company, and I went into Sanyo Labs, and very quickly I realized that I could not be a cube dweller. I could not sit in one place and basically just design products for the sake of designing products. I wanted to interact with prospects and customers, consumer insights. I very quickly learned that that plays an equal role, or sometimes a much bigger role, in getting a good understanding of product market match. So I moved from working in a research organization to a mainstream product organization, and I was recruited by Digital Equipment Corporation. Early on, some of the early products that I worked on is Alta Vista. Kevin,
Yeah, yeah, I remember
one of
that.
the first search
That was
engines, man.
awesome. Yeah.
I'm like super grateful to have worked not just on like hardware products like network products, but also firewall, Alta Vista firewall, Alta Vista antivirus, and most importantly, Alta Vista search engine. So those four products just became foundational to me, right?
Sure.
I had the hardware products with the routers, switches, and gateways, but simultaneously I had the software products from search through firewall, intrusion detection, antivirus. So cybersecurity very early on became like a fabric of my being, if you will.
Interesting.
And that's when DEC moved me from India to the US. So I moved to New England, and I'm very, very grateful that, Digital Equipment Corporation like moved me here. And then I worked on a bunch of roles, and those were the days when they really invested in the future of the employees by sending them to school. So
Wow.
I got a free MBA
Amazing.
from DEC. They paid one check, $215,000 those
Wow.
days to get me to business school. So I was eternally grateful. And what happened since was, a cumulative 20-year career with DEC, which was bought by Compaq, which was bought by HP. And I wanted to make sure, remember that underlying ethos, never take more than you can give. And I was bound by that ethos. And I said, I'm going to give everything that I can to the company that nurtured my early education. So I worked at DEC, Compaq, and HP. And the beauty of that is multiple roles. I was in a product development role for quite some time. And then I was an entrepreneur in residence in HP Ventures. And the beauty of that is they moved me around. So I worked in the UK for close to around 6.5 years. I had a stint in south of France. I had a stint in Sweden. I had a stint in Singapore. So I'm very, very grateful for getting that global view. And in addition to that, the roles from product development, operations, being an entrepreneur in residence in HP Ventures, which meant, minority equity investments and startups. And I felt really fulfilled. And finally, I started what is called cloud print. If you're printing from your mobile today, there are aspects of HPE print, and that's actually imbued with cloud print. That's there in most of the products that you can see. And I was a founder of that.
That's amazing.
And then I built wearables. And the beauty of building wearables is, so I went from building a SaaS platform with cloud print to building IoT products for Hugo Boss, Juicy Couture, Movado, Coach, Ferrari, and those products were sold around the world. And then I spent some time in Comcast to be the senior vice president of product and engineering of their IoT products. So Xfinity Home, I launched what is called Xfinity X5, which is a flagship product for Comcast for internet access and internet security. And then went on to build products for Shark and Ninja. So if you have a Ninja blender or a Shark vacuum cleaner or a Shark robot, those were products that I was responsible for as a chief product officer. And then went on to build industrial robots for a company called Berkshire Gray, which these are just not individual robots, but it's a swarm of robots, hundreds, thousands of robots that work together,
That's cool.
and then now I'm here in a transformational role, transforming Kenmore and brands like DieHard in my new role as the CEO. So it's an array of different products. You can see that as a theme across the board, very high-tech products on one side to appliances on the other. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to work with a different array of individuals, but most importantly, different parts of the world. So that's a summary here, Kevin.
Very cool. So you kind of have an interesting agenda to bring kind of Kenmore a global. Well, you tell it. Like, what's your vision with Kenmore? Because it's actually really kind of interesting.
Look, Kenmore as a brand was born in 1913.
Wow.
1913. It's over 100 years. I've seen products in the Kenmore archives, which are like sewing machines.
Sure.
And long story short, every decade, Kenmore as a brand has reinvented itself.
That's awesome. That's
And
rare too, right?
it's super rare. And go look at Kenmore brand affinity on YouGov.America. Go to, if you do a search on YouGov and say brands and say Kenmore, you will see the brand love is at 92%. It's
Wow.
like above brands like Bosch, and I can give you a spectacular array of brands. We are number 4. So
Wow.
that kind of brand love is hard to find unless you create products that are absolutely reliable. Even now, I get comments. Very recently, I read a comment by this person in Kansas who said, my 30-year-old Kenmore refrigerator still keeps my beer the coldest. It's amazing. It's
That's
amazing, that
awesome.
kind of brand love. So I'm just trying to take that brand, and basically the mission for the brand going further is to help Americans live more. And it's by providing innovative, inspirational, and affordable solutions and products to enhance daily living and promote longevity. So, Kevin, I feel like when you talk about increasing the quality of life for day-to-day Americans and enabling them to live longer lives, it shouldn't be just for the billionaires, right, who are biohacking. I
Yeah.
want us to be able to take care of clean air, clean water, energy conservation, and make it affordable. So the 48 million low and moderate income Americans can actually have a phenomenal shot of having a great quality of life and also live longer, right? And that is my mission, because Kenmore equals live more. And under that umbrella, I'm creating a new array of products associated with clean air, clean water, and energy conservation and water conservation. And the energy conservation is the new program, which is like, home electrification made easy. And we'll talk a wee bit about that. But that's the mission for the brand at this point in time, is for the next decade and 2 decades, anything that is built under the brand of Kenmore should help you live more. And when I say live more, it is not exist more. When you say live, it also includes the quality of life. And I want to underline affordable innovation. I don't want to be a brand that is not reachable by a lot of people. I want this to be a very accessible brand, and I want to build products and solutions for day-to-day Americans.
Okay. So I guess two-part question to that. What's the plan to actually execute on that? And then obviously you have competition in the space because you guys build so many arrays or so many verticals of products that how do you work with them, or do you not need your competition to actually bring some of this to life? Because when you talk about maybe, cleaner energy and such, obviously, like not everybody's going to buy everything from one brand. It's pretty hard to do, right?
Yeah, let me break that question down into a few parts. The first part is, let's talk about clean air. You're going to see products from us in the marketplace with, you know, clean air connected products. That's going to tell you affordable connected products. That's just going to tell you what's happening to the air that you breathe within the home, and also make sure that if there are impurities, we clean that. Very simple. Very simple. Like
Okay.
that's the first step. In terms of energy conservation, we signed a relationship with a company called Span. If you go
Okay.
look at span.io, you will see what that does. It's basically an electrical panel, a digitally connected electrical panel that can help load balance amperage within your home, which is number one, but it also is like the whole home hub. It does not matter if a product that you're connected to, for your electricity is a Kenmore or a non-Kenmore appliance. It is
Okay.
a whole home like electrical panel. But the beauty is if your compressor is going on and off, um, we can identify that and we can say, hey, you know what? You may want to get your refrigerator repaired. It's not like get your Kenmore refrigerator repaired. It could be a Samsung, it could be a Whirlpool, it could be
Right.
anything.
Interesting.
We have decades and decades of data on home repair. We know what happens to an appliance much before the appliance actually fails. And we have those electrical signals. And that's a collaboration between us and Span. So if you take a giant step back, the appliance doesn't have to be Kenmore. The product that we are using is a Span product, but we are bringing our knowledge of the appliance repair and appliance industry to Span. And what we are doing is we have a D2C model in this scenario, and we are also riding the wave of the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of things that I've said here. One, it's a multi-vendor appliance strategy. Two, our assets are our knowledge of how appliances behave over the lifetime of the appliance. And that's something that, we work with Span on that.
Interesting.
The third piece is directly going to the consumer. But think about it. Kenmore, when it was a part of Sears, we have collected customer data and customers have opted in to communicate with us. I have a spectacular array of data right now that I can mine, and I can exactly tell, very similar to Zillow. You can go into the Kenmore Smart app in our dashboard and basically put in your address. Guess what happens? It goes to public records and it automatically populates all the appliances in your home. Now, we can estimate for that zip code what rebates are available from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Oh, interesting.
And based on that, and the beauty of Inflation Reduction Act is for the 48 million low and moderate income families, depending on where you fall in the income, family income, you could get maybe $14,000 in free appliances.
Wow.
And Kevin, the beauty of that is we can take those rebates at the till.
So, oh, wow. Oh, interesting. Okay.
So think about this scenario. We micro target working with Span, say certain zip codes in Texas or California or in Florida to those homes and say, look, the government will let you buy and pay for the appliance and installation up to $14,000. Check if you're eligible. The person goes in, checks the eligibility, boom, it's available. We go in, we put a heat pump based water heater, we put the Span panel, we basically sell them, let's say, an induction cooktop. And this is where the fun comes. They basically select a basket of appliances and they go through the checkout at the till. We apply the rebates. There might be a small amount of money that they have to pay out of the pocket. We'll finance that. It doesn't end there. They can schedule installation. And when they schedule installation, we have a sister company, which is Sears Home Services, which has technicians, close to around 3,000 technicians, and we have a long-term agreement with them. They will basically collect the appliances, apply for the permits, install the appliances for you, and sign up for warranty. Kevin, I can tell you horror stories of people. Let's talk about we are talking about electrification, people who have gone and bought an electric vehicle and they come home, they have bought an EV charger from Amazon, they call an electrician, the electrician comes home, and guess what happens? They say, oh, you only have a 100 amp panel. So you got to call your utility company. You call your utility company, they'll say, oh, no problem. We will increase that to a 200 amp circuit, but we need to dig up your front yard and we need to pull this wire. It's going to cost you $25,000.
Yeah.
You know what we do in that scenario? Don't worry about it. We will load balance your home load with a span panel. We will install the span panel. And so you don't have to increase your 100 amps. We will, when you are charging your car, let's say you turn on your water heater to take a shower, we can basically cut down the amperage into your charger for your EV. And we will do that. Look, that is the beauty. And you tell me, Kevin, which appliance company is doing that today, wherein we identify a consumer, we identify the Inflation Reduction Act rebates, we will put the basket of appliances that it's relevant to their life. When they buy, we'll also take care of the financing if needed. And we schedule the appointment. We basically pull the permits. We install. It's end to end. End to end. Awesome. We don't have to worry about anything. So the job of removing friction is what Kenmore is doing. And you know what? That is in itself is beautiful, because if you look in this whole continuum of electrification made easy, how many products there are Kenmore? There might be one or two, but the rest are a multi-vendor product. And at the end of the day, energy security is such a big bipartisan agenda in the US, and whole home electrification is one step towards the goal, because now the grids are not going to be under pressure. Every home, can play in the demand response space. And, ultimately, we don't have to worry about depending on energy with any other foreign power, right? I mean, that's the biggest goal. At the end of the day, what Kenmore is doing is helping Americans live a more independent life and a more secure life with energy security on one side. So that's another part of our brand story. So living more with whole home electrification.
Okay, so is this program that you just outlined live today? And how much are you hoping to grow this over the next 3, 5, 10 years?
Very simple. Kevin, in terms of where we are, we have now rolling this out in different parts of the country. Yes, It is live. And if you are in the Sacramento area or parts of Southern California, you can take advantage of this. And just like any startup, Kevin, you want it to be iterative. We need to iron out any of the kinks. So we are rolling out this program. Go to improve.kenmore.com or rebates.kenmore.com. And you can actually get the details on our electrification program, our phenomenal relationship with SPAN as a company. And you will see more and more announcements here, because look, if you actually look at where electrification is, they're like islands. You have companies focusing on, weatherizing your home. You have appliance providers like, the Carriers, the Whirlpools, the Samsungs, the A.O. Smiths, the LGs. And then you have the IRS and SMUD and the funding, and then you have energy appliance companies like Enphase, the solar thing, Sunrun. You have Tesla, and then you have utility companies. But you want someone who can actually bring that all together, install it, and and provide warranties, and also take the rebates at the till. And when you ask me the question on who are your competition, I just see a lot of people doing bits and pieces of it, but bringing this all together with a phenomenal workforce of people who are driving around the trucks around the country, on one side, our sister company, which is Sears Home Services, basically supporting us in this endeavor. On the other side, some of the amazing Silicon Valley startups are working with us. And then our ability to basically take rebates at the till and also bring a spectacular array of multi-vendor appliances from water heater companies on one side to heat pump based companies on the other. We work with Carrier and integrating that in the most painless way. That is what we're doing in the world of electrification.
No, that's very cool. And I think the reality is, I think a lot of people would want to do what you just outlined, but before you guys were doing this, it was too much effort. It was just like the amount of time and effort I would have to go to research all these things you outlined, actually go shopping and actually connect them all together. People are just like, I don't have time for that. Right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and then you got to deal with the government on rebates and subsidies,
which takes months at best.
And look, in doing startups, and you have done startups, Kevin, you can do startups by bringing a new idea or take something that is fragmented and make that a seamless experience, a 5-star experience. Yeah. And that's what we focused on doing with electrification.
That's very cool. So how does AI play into this? And is there like a monthly fee to run all this, or walk us through kind of how those play together? Or maybe they don't.
Yeah, very simple. There is no monthly dollar amount that you have to pay here in this scenario, right? What we are doing is we are becoming the biggest purveyor of the Inflation Reduction Act money in a seamless way. We are putting into people's homes. That's as simple as that. Government has this huge tsunami of Inflation Reduction Act money. The floodgates are opening, and we are just helping take that money and putting into people's homes with electrified appliances. Very simple.
Yeah. That's
right.
Cool.
So that's number one. You asked a very loaded question on AI. Look, there are bits and pieces of AI that are imbued into the product. I won't go into what span and span products basically do with AI, but even within the company, we are looking to figure out how we can use all the new technology associated with the LLMs that can make our own lives better, right? Everything from writing emails on one side, Kevin, which can be done in a spectacularly fast way with LLMs, to helping with IP discovery with our legal team. I'll tell you one thing that we did within our company. When I took over the helm of Kenmore, we put the whole company on weekly sprints. It's not just engineering.
Oh, interesting.
Legal, operation. We work on weekly sprints. Every Friday, I report to my board or my boss, and I clearly articulate what my next week plan is and what the monthly goals are. Every member of my team does that, irrespective of whether they're in operations, customer success, product, engineering, legal, sales. Everybody works on weekly sprints. And when you put the whole company to work on weekly sprints, you know what happens? You just run faster than anybody else. Second, the goals get extraordinarily clear. And that's a great hack. So that's one hack that we focused on. The second hack is we said we're going to focus on the essentials. Look, the Kenmore brand love, we were very clear, right? It was 88% last year. We have gone up, 5 to 6 points this year. And we said, if we take care of good quality products, the brand love will actually go up on its own. So we put all our effort in making sure that we work with suppliers who bring in and deliver to us amazing quality products, right? And we went from a handful of suppliers, 1 or 2, to like a dozen suppliers. So we are never supply constrained. That's great progress.
Interesting.
The third thing that we did, which I'm phenomenally happy, is you can go today, go to like Target locations. You can find Kenmore products on shelf. Like
Right.
products like microwaves, we occupy 40% of shelf space. So now products are available like literally in multiple physical retail locations. So that was the third piece, that we did together. So long story short, we have kind of like turned this around in the last 1 year. And of course, look, AI, we are not, I wouldn't say we are a tech company, but we are a tech forward company. And we are going to use every available tool to accelerate our speed and quality of execution at this point in time.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting because just because a thing new, sometimes it makes sense to adopt it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to adopt it. Sometimes it makes sense to adopt it in certain areas. And it's always interesting, especially when you're obviously a big company, right? And getting, everybody kind of going in the same direction can be challenging. And the sprint idea, actually, I've never heard of a big company actually really doing that across the board. Obviously, like their dev teams and whatnot. So I'm curious, how did you make that decision and how did it actually go? Because you probably had some pushback from certain departments, maybe certain personality types, or walk us through that. And how did you overcome those?
Yeah, great question. First, be the change. You have to be the change.
Yeah.
You got to embody the change. The first thing that I did was with my boss and my board, I was very clear I was going to have a meeting every Friday. Every Friday at 9 a.m. I'm just telling this in the open. I meet with, I would say my boss, and I give a status update.
Okay.
And in that status, I have sprints defined for legal, operation, customer success, and sales, product engineering, quality. And the first 20 weeks, it was awfully painful.
Okay.
It was like pulling teeth. Kevin, I had a head full of air when I started, Nate, and all I'm trying to say is, if you do something really well for like 20 weeks, it becomes a habit.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
people struggle trying to put a legal team on a weekly sprint. Kevin, it's very, very, very hard. Suddenly contracts basically that were taking months for no reason, right? It's not like people were twiddling their thumbs, but emails were being used for follow-ups. What's the best thing to do? Pick up the phone and call, right? Text.
Right.
So the moment you put everyone on weekly sprints, they'll find a way to communicate beyond a disconnected, loosely coupled communication like email. Suddenly, the teams get closer on its own. So
yeah, interesting.
It was extremely hard. I can write a blog post on getting companies to operate on weekly sprints, and the results are spectacular. There are
Interesting.
areas of the business where we have doubled our revenue year over year, double in this economic condition. Let me also highlight something, Kevin. We didn't have to let go of anyone. We're actually hiring in this
That's
economic
huge, actually.
and growing.
No, that's impressive, actually. You could probably write a book more than probably not just blog posts on how to do that.
Yeah, look, I think also very grateful to have a phenomenal team, having the right people at the right place. But most importantly, there is one thing. Humility and tenacity is very important. You have to focus on things that are simple because simplicity scales. And you have to lead the way. You got to be in the details. Leaders who are not in the details basically will struggle. And the weekly sprints gives you a phenomenal perspective both on the width and the depth, because you're seeing week over week changes. And that, I can say, is one not so secret sauce of like turning anything around, in my opinion.
Interesting. So then how do you have, or what's your advice around work-life balance? Because you got to be a busy person, right? And just having extra meetings that you have to be prepared for every Friday, it's easier said than done. Let's be.
Yeah, but what you didn't ask me was what else is going on Friday. After
Okay.
that meeting,
Yeah.
literally the team basically takes a sigh of relief, and our Fridays are, our meetings are spread out. I'm a big believer in letting the team take a deep breath. I make sure that there is phenomenal work-life balance for the team members. And on weekends, I came from a culture in a couple of companies, I'm not going to name them, where we literally worked 10 hours on a Saturday and 6 hours on a Sunday. In my 2+ years of tenure, I had, I could not take a weekend off. That's not what I want out of the team. I want the team to have a creative space. I want them to lead a great life with their family. I put the hashtag health first and family first on literally several of my emails to the team. And when I talk to people, I don't really care where they are. I have members of my team who spend their summers in Wisconsin, and winters in California. I have members of the team who are calling in from like baseball games, when they're with their teams, just to say hi. And I'm a big believer that you have to be sincere to your time off to be truly sincere to your time on. And it's really important to make sure that there is massive work-life balance. And let me tell you, Kevin, this passionate team of individuals, I have not lost one person. There's a reason for that.
Right.
Because there is
Huge.
great work-life balance. And most importantly, you've got to treat the team as one among equals. And you have to be able to take criticism to your face and take that as a valid input. And I've made sure that on my team, anybody can walk in and say, Shri, I don't agree with you, mate. This part doesn't work. And I really encourage that. I want people to tell me why things won't work, because I can listen. And I really think having that kind of a relationship with your team, where challenge and be challenged is a core tenet, and having the mindset, having the great attitude, the energy, the integrity, the openness, and empathy is really important. If you're a great product leader, you have empathy towards your consumer. But most importantly, you have to have empathy towards your team. And if you have empathy towards your team, you will not only build great products, but you will also grow the business exponentially.
No, that makes sense. But how did you nurture that culture and allow people to actually believe you when you say you're willing to take that feedback? Because some people, just because of your CEO title, they feel like they can't actually give you proper feedback. So how did you actually practice that and get people to give you that feedback? Because you're right, you need that feedback, but some personality types are just like, they're uncomfortable, right?
Great question, Kevin. I would say two things. One, emphasize that feedback is not just appreciated, but encouraged in every form of communication. That's an easy thing to do. I think many people do that. But secondly, making sure that when someone gives you feedback, you show by example that you're accepting feedback and not resisting it.
Right.
That's a little bit harder for some people. 3 is you can seed the team with people who have worked with you in the past, who are comfortable giving you feedback and give you that feedback openly. My chief operating officer, his name is Eric Barnard. He and I worked together in our past life. To my face, he tells me, Shri, you take this feedback or not, but I'm telling you this. And people have seen that there are no repercussions. There is no
Right.
ego here at the end of the day. So I would say a three-pronged approach. Emphasize in all communication that challenge and be challenged is a good part of the culture. Just because someone challenges you doesn't mean they hate you. They loathe you. It's not. They're not going to ding you in your in your annual feedback. The second one is during your all hands session. And there's another thing. I have monthly all hands where I bring the whole team. I tell them what's going on. We don't hide stuff because you never know where the brightest ideas can come from. And in the all hands, people challenge you. And how you react to that matters.
Yeah.
3 is seed the team with people who have worked with you in the past, who are one among equals, and to your face, they can tell you, dude, you're wrong. And you know what? When you think about it and say, hey, you know what, Eric? You're actually right, bro. You're actually right. And when you admit that to the team, they'll come across as absolutely human. You have to do that, Kevin. And at the end of the day, remember, it's a community that brought me up. Never take more than you can give. And, you know, just being alive gives you that perspective in life. And winning is a team sport.
Yeah.
Those life lessons have basically taught me, and it has served me really, really well.
No, that's actually really good advice. But sadly, we're out of time. So how about we close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, Kenmore, and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah. For Kenmore, go to rebates.kenmore.com or improve.kenmore.com to learn about the new electrification program. For all the Kenmore products, you can just go to kenmore.com. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. Last name is Solur, S-O-L-U-R. First name is Shri, S-R-I. And I usually take the time to respond to all my messages. But the point here is, look, you know, go build amazing products, but most importantly, build amazing teams that is empowered to build amazing products. And that's the ethos that's carried me a very long way. And thank you, Kevin. This has been a phenomenal conversation with you, mate.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks very much. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.